Hello and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host Bryan. We're going to continue on with this week's theme of more representation, checking out a group called Envy. They're a Japanese metal band, if I'm reading this correctly. We're going to be looking at something off of their The Fallen Crimson album from 2020. The song is called Dawn and Gaze. Let's dive in and see what Envy is bringing to the table today. Melody on the left, tremolo picking on the right, 4 on the floor bass kick. A bright and positive sound overall though. I'm beginning to think I misunderstood the metal thing. A little bit of post-rock there at the beginning. This is... Now that's gorgeous.
始まる未来立ち止まる意味は先につなぐ過去の僕溢れるほどの思いを胸に抱える繰り返し途絶えるさよならは
Did you hear that? I was not expecting harshness. We had very punky drumming in that last section with heavy syncopation between the bass kick and the snare. There's still syncopation here, but this one feels a bit more of a march based on that heavy snare usage. Still really great and uplifting guitar work though. The bass following along with the guitars. Triplet on the bass kicks, clean vocals in the background. This is a wild track. Ooh, getting rid of the compression and bringing in a lighter, more dexterous tone for the same little riff. parts of this remind me of, though, is it Explosions in the Sky, the post-rock outfit? Oh, okay. Bring the reggaeton rhythm in. I like how this simultaneously feels like peaking from where we were, but also a release. I don't understand that. All right. Yeah, I think the first thing that just stands out to me that I want to discuss is the plethora of influences here. This is a mishmash of a lot of different sounds. There's certainly a post rock idea at the heart of a lot of this. There's a lot of texture play. We have the tremolo picking, which is a big staple, I think, of post rock, and particularly texture based slow burn genres, not even necessarily post rock, because post rock's kind of a big umbrella. There are a lot of bands who use tremolo guitars in order to build up tension, but yeah, I said it's a staple. That's not true. It does appear quite a lot though. But we can hear it in a lot of bands who use slow burn layering of intensity. And here again, but it also carries a brightness to it that, like I said, kind of reminds me of Explosions in the Sky. I think they are one of the first bands that I think of when it comes to texture based, slow burn, optimistic music. And so I feel some of that here. Again, that's the post rock stuff, though. Lots of repetition and of adding of layers on top of the repetition. But we also have a sort of post-hardcore element in a couple of the transitions, the way that the drums will carry us from one idea to the next, little 1 to 2 bar guitar licks as we move between ideas that don't really suit any of the larger styles at play. There's also the big elephant in the room I don't think we can ignore, which is the harsh vocals. They are exceptionally metallic. Death metal, metalcore, maybe. They're a bit rawer than I would expect. Maybe there is a bit of a hardcore component to it. I think metalcore is actually a good place to draw the parallel there. But again, still, it's another influence. It's something that stands apart from the rest. We also have that strong ballad section with the quieter instruments, the less layers, very spacious and atmospheric, with the light, whispery vocals, also bringing in what is it, spoken word instead of singing in that moment as well. It is a little dash of a lot of stuff. We also have the reggaeton drum beat that comes in. We have a march style snare idea. It does get a little too flourishy for me to say it is a strict march, but at the root of it is still based off of a march foundation. We had a punky drum idea in there at one point with a strong syncopation between the bass and snare, where one gave us the backbeat and the other gave us the syncopation to it. We have elements of punk and rock and pop and march and reggaeton and metal, all of it just kind of grouped in here. There's melodic sections that drive the song forward. There's heavy aggressive sections. There's atmospheric slow burns. It's a little dash of everything, creating something that simultaneously feels like it has no identity and a very strong sense of identity. I've never really heard anything like this. It's very easy to say, oh, this is inspired from that, and this is from that, and this is a piece of that, and that's a piece of that. But really, when you bring all of that together, you get envy. Have you all ever heard anything like this? Maybe they were not the first ones to invent this, but I don't think anything like this has crossed my ears yet. And so they become very unique in my mind, despite feeling very much like fragments of a lot of other things. Very unique. But I don't know that it all works. I think in isolation, we look at each individual section and the way that they might pair harsh vocals with optimistic tremolo post rock stuff, or the way that they might pair spoken word with a pop ballad aesthetic and simplicity of sound. I think those parts generally work together. I don't think there is any specific moment on the micro level in this track where I thought to myself, ooh, that's a little rough, or that combination doesn't really augment the two sides or anything like that. I think that most of the decisions in here worked in a way to embellish what was already happening, and that the diverse sounds being presented together were a positive effect on the goals of the section, whether that is to be emotionally heavy or dense or isolating, pleasant to listen to, aggressive textures, anything like that. Everything I feel ends up working for a positive combination, a positive effect. And so each individual section ends up being greater than the sum of its parts. But the song as a whole, it does end up feeling a bit fragmented to me. I kind of wish we would have felt a little bit more crossover. Maybe the musical idea ends up getting stretched a little bit further to hear the, I don't know, the sparse instrumental section paired with some vocals rather than the spoken word. Maybe getting to hear the tremolo picked, bright, optimistic post rock section without the harsh vocals, maybe with the vocal harmonies of two of the vocalists, or maybe it was backing track. I don't know. There was a second vocalist off to the right usually that I thought worked well. Just something that would help tie everything together, because as it stands, it feels like a bunch of scenes that are an interesting composite of ideas, but the scenes themselves don't necessarily flow into one another very well. For me, anyways, everything definitely feels like isolated moments. This is the growls and post rock. This is the spoken word and atmosphere, and it's more about the individual scenes than how they flow together. At least, again, with my experience through a single listen of this track. That's not to say that I don't think it works overall. I think all of the sounds do generally work together. It's just the flow of the sections doesn't. Well, it's rigid, and maybe that's intentional too. Maybe when we get to the lyrics, it is about memories, about jumping between different memories in the past, and about your life feeling like a series of isolated scenes. You know, you can really make this theme work artistically. Um, but it did. It ended up feeling very segmented to me. I do like the plethora of techniques in here as well. The bass tends to follow along with what the guitar is doing, but that doesn't mean that they're necessarily always playing what the guitar is, especially if the guitar is playing something a bit faster, like the tremolo picking. we do get to hear a variation on that present in the bass. The guitars end up doing chords, they end up doing melodies, they end up doing the textural tremolo picking. We get to hear a variety of that. The drums are all over the place. I already mentioned that. We got a punk thing in here, we got the reggaeton thing, we got a march, we've got some post-hardcore ideas, we have 4 on the floor in places. It is all over the place. The drummer has so much skill. And the vocals, again, we have clean vocals, we have harmonized cleans, we have growls, we have spoken word. And spoken words, to me, it's really difficult to pull off. It's not one of those things where you just get up in front of a microphone and read a poem you wrote, because there is an inherent rhythm and rising and falling pitch to speech. It is musical in ways, even if I would never describe spoken word as music. And so crafting the right words, putting the right phrasing on sentences, the right places to put a pause in order to add emphasis or to line up with the rhythm that the band's doing. There's a lot of things that go into play here in the writing itself, but also the delivery of it. And I think this one ended up working really well. Again, it's a difficult skill, no different than singing. It's all about knowing what's the best thing to say at the right time with the right inflection and tone compared to what the music is doing. And it absolutely works here. I was completely sold on it. There's spoken word that can sound cheesy and out of place, and that isn't what happens here. So, yeah, just like I said, a nice plethora of sounds from all the instruments. Now, I think the last thing I want to touch on is just the general feeling and vibe of this track. I mentioned there at the end that the final few moments of the song felt like both an increase of tension and a release of tension, and I couldn't quite figure out why. I don't know that I've figured it out by now, but I want to explain how I got to that point. The song bounces between these elements of low tension, the isolation of the spoken word sections, with the heavy weight present from the large amount of attacks from our tremolo guitar over here, and usually the harsh vocals on top of it, giving it weight and bassiness. Those sections are very high intensity, and we kind of fluctuate between these for a while. That is, at least up until we get to the final minute or so of the song, and we reach a peak, which is the tremolo picking and the harsh vocals, and then we push it even higher. We put in some clean vocals to go alongside it. We have more guitar work. We have the bass doing something new underneath. The drums are getting more and more intense as well. And this opens up within like the last 30 seconds to get rid of the heavy vocals and bring in cleans, harmonized cleans, but the guitar work is still tense. Harmonically, it's uplifting, it's hopeful, it's still bright and positive, but musically it still feels like we're being pulled down, like we're being crushed by positivity maybe, and that's what drives my entire feeling at the end of the track. I was on this roller coaster, and at the moment when we were supposed to hit the peak and allow for resolution to come out of that, we hit a kind of half resolution where harmonically we resolved. Harmonically we found brightness. We got out of the darker tones, exploded into lighter ones, and they even came with a pitch increase as well. I don't think we changed chords there, but we certainly raised the general pitch that we were working with. If we were working with like a range here, we just bumped it up a little bit. Most of the range still overlaps, but there's some higher stuff up here that we are bringing brighter tones out of. So we have all of this elation that comes out of this, a rising out of the soot kind of feeling going on, but there's still so much pressure and intensity from the way instruments are playing. There's still a lot of drum work going on. There's still a lot of tremolo picking. There's still plenty of layers, multiple guitars, bass, drum, multiple vocalists. there's still a lot going on. And so it feels like we've made a breakthrough, but there's still so much force being exerted upon us as a listener. And I found that to be very interesting. I don't know that we've heard any song like that. Usually, I mean, I think the only time that anything similar has happened is when we get half resolutions at the end of a song. And I'm like, well, yeah, that kind of resolved, but also there's still a little bit of tension there. But that's almost entirely all harmonic. Half resolutions are a thing in composition, and they can be used to great effect, usually within a song to create a turn, to kind of release a little bit of tension while still building the story towards the true ending. You can also use them at the end of a song just to feel like it's not fully over, to imply an element of more. Fade outs kind of do this really well also, to imply something continues. But to do it here in a split way, where harmonically we've gone in one direction, but compositionally and layer wise we've gone in another, is pretty fresh for the channel, I think. And I like it. I think it works really well in this story, and I think they do a great job of showcasing these two extremes, bouncing back and forth between them. The structure is rather cyclical on this. I'm pretty sure it's the same thing over and over. The same 3 sections done a second time, and then it's the escalation to the outro. And so it sets up this idea of creating expectation. We've done these 3 ideas. We're starting over. You can expect we're going to do them again. Hey, we did. Look, we told you what we were going to do. We did it, and now everyone's good. Everyone's on the same page. And then we're just going to take that up to the next level, which is what you do at the end of a song. Everything is dictated in a way that's expected. And so they set us on this ride. They tell us what the ride's going to be, and then they hit us with this end moment, this little twist. Yeah, you were expecting something bigger here. Yeah, you got something bigger. We were all on page for that, but it's not quite the release you were expecting, huh? And I kind of like that tongue-in-cheek playfulness to it. It's not a total subversion, but it certainly doesn't go exactly where I thought it was going to either, in a way that I think works well at creating a specific emotion, but also tying the unexpectedness with that hopeful compression that we get towards the end of the song. Oh, speaking of compression, there's also that one little neat thing we had where the distorted guitar did this one loop and then turned off all distortion. We got a clean guitar doing the loop. I thought that was a really nice transition. Nothing more to it than that. It's one of those little things that stuck out to me. I'm going to find some lyrics for this, and then we are going to wrap this video up. Alright. This song seems to be about the end of a relationship and not quite knowing how to deal with that, feeling the pain and the sorrow and the want and longing for the relationship to go back to the way it used to be. About walking the world, not knowing what to do anymore, just blindly one step ahead of the other, not really with any destination, just trying to get somewhere else. The beginning says that unfolding helpless words again and again, future that begins with these fulfilled days. The meaning of this halt is my past that will connect beyond, embracing the feelings that overflow, repeating the recitation. Farewell is a start. The idea that every step after today is now my future, a different future than it was prior, but it's what it is now. And while this was the end of something, which is actually repeated many times in this track, it's, as he mentions, it's an end of his world, or the end of that world, or the end of this world. Right here at the beginning, it speaks to a want to find a way to move forward. It says that farewell is a start, and this is something that he repeats over and over. It's the only way that he can feel he can move on from the end of this relationship. And he talks about walking the world with his eyes shut, wanting to hold your hand again, but not being able to. Says, I'll never forget the twilight that I saw you. I will never forget the twilight in your eye that I saw the first time we met, wondering what you were thinking about. Says, what's another one? This is all written in just like one huge block. I don't have stanzas, so it's kind of difficult for me to find exact phrases. I should have highlighted them. That's what I should have done. That would have been very smart. Talks about not wanting to forget the relationship, though, that it will help build him from here, not necessarily as something to always lament, but something to hold dear, not just the good parts, but the bad, and to grow out of it as well. It says, I'll try not to break my only words that I've gained through this process, and I'll try not to forget the tears that were dropped and the pulses of the moment. I like that. It's the idea that while this wasn't the optimal outcome, that no failure is truly a failure if something is learned from it. As long as you can grow from a mistake, it's a learning situation more so than something to look back at with totally negative perspective. And there's something at the end. Oh yeah, it says the definite smile, the way that you walk, and this light. If everything had to be seen through these drenched gray eyes, what should I hold in my hands to cope with the end of this world? Stretching out and reaching out my arms, I will pass my words like I am screaming. This idea that you're still reaching for something, there's still a future ahead of you to go through, and hopefully by reaching your arms out, someone or something will grab you and help you along. That you're not alone. At the moment you are, but that's temporary. It's going to be tough. He says, I'm going to see things through drenched gray eyes for a while, but hopefully things will change. But in the meantime, he says, I will pass my words like I am screaming. There is raw pain and anguish here, and that's how I must deliver these words. So yeah, I like that. And I think it works well with the music too. This is definitely a breakup song. It's lyrically rather negative for the most part. It is about the pain and the anguish, the sorrow of the end of a relationship. And we do hear some of that weight in the music. But we also have the levity of the music, the hopeful optimism in a lot of the guitar work that's present in the lyrics as well. It's a song about knowing things will get better, about pushing for a brighter future. Things suck today, but they don't have to tomorrow. It will take work, but things can improve. And that's kind of present there at the end, too, now that I think about it, where we have the hopeful optimism punching through all of the weightiness, but we retain the layers of it. It is still a weight upon us, but there is what I called hopeful compression. A want for a better future, but still a tight, tense current, present. And that's what this is about, that today sucks. I don't want to be here today. The world is gray, but that it will get better. It's that optimism despite the current situation. They do a fantastic way of presenting that in the music, and I love that. So yeah, those are my thoughts on Envy's Dawn and Gaze. Yeah. What are yours? Is there anything in this track that stood out to you? Anything that you'd like to add on to what I said or correct me on? Maybe there's just some stuff that you wanted to talk about that I didn't bring up at all. And it was like very noticeable to you. Like, dude, I can't believe you didn't talk about this thing in the music. Like, please let me know. Put all that stuff down in the comments section. Above that, in the description box, you'll find a link to Linktree. Takes you here. You can find links to my music, ways to support the channel, a link to the Discord server, and so much more. Above that, if you could, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. I greatly appreciate all three of those. Alright, that wraps it up for today. We'll be back tomorrow, getting back on track with the usual schedule of one themed reaction and one special selection. Until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical, of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening, whenever you choose to watch my videos.